What's the best method to study the Arabic language? Now, that's $1 million question, and there are many, many that have actually tried to answer that question. And before I jump into the answer, there's something I have to break to everyone, which is that the question itself is actually a problematic question. The reason for that is that when it comes to studying languages, there's actually 4 components of any language that you would study. Number 1 is speaking the language. Number 2, listening. Number 3, reading. And number 4, writing that language. Now, normally when you study a language, all 4 of these, they go hand in hand. So as you study how to read, you also study how to speak. And as you're speaking, you're listening. And with all of that, you're also learning how to write at the same exact time. And usually when it comes to studying a language, you would study all 4 together. But when it comes to the Arabic language is very unique in the sense that we can actually divide these into 2 categories. We have conversational, so spoken Arabic, learning how to speak, learning how to understand if you are spoken to. And number 2, you have comprehension. So being able to understand what you are reading, being able to understand the Qur'an as you read the Qur'an, as you read the Qur'an, being able to understand the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as you hear it being recited. That is a very different perspective of the language. And depending on what perspective you're trying to achieve, we would actually say the method differs. So if someone wants to learn spoken Arabic, the best method for that individual is to simply travel to one of the Arabian lands, some country in which they speak Arabic, and immerse yourself with the people, with the locals over there, and pick up the ability to speak from them. That is better than sitting with textbooks or attending classes. That is the best way that you will learn how to speak Arabic. And to be honest, you don't actually need grammar for it. Just like many of us, if we speak English, we don't actually study grammar before we learn how to speak the English language. You just pick it up as you go along. So when you move to a country in which they speak Arabic, you will automatically learn how to understand and comprehend, and you'll imitate and you'll mimic the method that they speak in. And you'll reflect their words with them, and you'll be able to communicate with them. Slowly, you'll perfect it, and you'll pick up their dialect along with that. That is if you want to learn spoken Arabic, the ability to speak and the ability to understand when you are spoken to in a specific given dialect. But what if someone wants to understand the Arabic language from the perspective of being able to read and comprehend? And this is really what our program at Talweeh is catered towards. Why? Because we know as believers, for the majority of believers in the world, the actual reason why they want to study the Arabic language is not because they want to live in an Arab country. There are those that want to live in Arab countries, and for that reason, they want to know how to speak Arabic. But for the majority of the Muslims, the reason why they're studying the Arabic language is to be able to understand the miraculous nature of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through that language. And so our program is more catered towards those that want to develop a skill by way of which they will be able to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying when they're standing in Salah. They'll be able to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying when they're reciting the Qur'an. And so really it's a celebration of the Qur'an. It's actually for the purpose of understanding the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is the best method that will allow you to go from being able to basically just read and understand the letters, being able to comprehend the letters, and be able to basically read the Qur'an, to be able to understand what is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to me? That's the program that we've developed over here at Talweeh Academy. And we have five modules that we've prepared. Now, before I go through each one of the modules, I'll start off with a basic example. You have a basic sentence in Arabic. كان في القرية رجل صالح. Now, this program is designed for people that are able to read this sentence by themselves. So, the ability to be able to read the sentence when it has harakat. If you're not able to read the sentence at all, and you're not able to recognize the letters, then this program is not designed for you. Then you would have to actually study from the very, very basic. Look for a teacher that can teach you one-on-one, a very, very basic letter recognition and so on and so forth. But for the most of the Muslims, alhamdulillah, they've gone through that system when they were young, and so they're able to recognize letters, and they really want to go to the next step. So we have this sentence, كان في القرية رجل صالح. Now this sentence has different words. The first step would actually be to be able to recognize these different words. Are all the words the same? Or are there different types of words? What if we gave you patterns through which you can actually tell whether a word is a verb versus a noun versus a particle? So for example, if I told you that anytime you see a tanween, that necessitates that the word actually be a noun. And now you see in the sentence, كان في القرية رجل صالح, and you see 2 tanweens in the end of 2 words, and so you're able to determine that those are nouns. So the first part would really be pattern recognition and being able to decipher between different types of words in the Arabic language. The second part, after you're able to recognize these words and these patterns, even if you don't understand what they mean, you're just able to recognize that that word is a verb versus a noun versus a particle. The second step is, how can I take this and enhance it? So we say there are certain rules that are associated with the type of word. So if they're verbs, they will always be upon certain scales. If they're particles, they will be in a certain manner. And if they're nouns, they follow certain patterns as well. And in this second layer, you would be exposed to how the vowels also have patterns. So when you see these harakat in the Arabic language are not pointless. In fact, they carry the meaning of the sentence. And so you understand how that works. And you're able to understand the patterns in the harakat. After you comprehend this and you apply it and you recognize it, until you know exactly why a letter has a dhamma, a word has a dhamma in the end versus a fatha in the end, versus a sukoon in the end, versus a kasra in the end. You're able to recognize these patterns. The next step would be get rid of the harakat. Once the harakat are gone, now you apply. And this will take time. Slowly applying these patterns into the same sentence that you see. Once you apply the patterns, then when you become comfortable with this, eventually you'll become so comfortable that it becomes second nature. Once it becomes second nature, then we get to the next step, which will be understand the secrets behind the different types of these patterns and the different types of vowels that are used to relay the different types of meanings that can be relayed in the Arabic language. After you comprehend all of that, then the final task would be, now let's understand the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in light of it through the Arabic language. So that is a gist of how the program will take place, inshallah ta'ala. The first module that we have prepared is actually a module that will give you an overview of the entire process of how the language works. And this is in line with a very understood process, which is applied not only in learning languages, but in practically everything. For example, when you write a thesis, to tell you in the beginning, tell them what you're going to tell them. Likewise, when you're giving a speech, to tell you in the beginning, tell everyone what you're going to tell them. Just give it out to them right in the beginning. Then after that, you go into the details. So you go into more detail regarding what you've told them, that you're going to tell them. So you actually tell them. And then in the end, you come out and you summarize and you recap exactly what you told them. That is the process that we are following in the 5 modules. The first module will simply be a formal entry into structured Arabic, and it will be giving you the essential foundational blocks by giving you an entire overview of the most important component. What holds the language together? What conveys the actual meanings in the language? That is the first module. After the first module, we move on to module number 2. In module number 2, we start introducing books. So you understood the patterns and the concepts and basic concepts and the most important essential components of the language. In module number 2, we actually start applying those essential components. So we're going to take a few books. Now, by this point, you'll have understood the difference between nahu and sarf and the different purposes of these different disciplines. So really, the Arabic language divides and it branches off into different disciplines. The most important of them are 2 disciplines, which is nahu, syntax, and sarf, which is morphology. You'll have understood the difference between these 2 disciplines. Now, we further go into each discipline individually, while at the same time, we have a basic book that we will use to apply the rules that we're studying in these 2 disciplines. So we'll have a book, inshallah ta'ala, in nahu, and we'll have a book, inshallah ta'ala, in sarf, and we'll also have a book, inshallah ta'ala, for the purpose of applying the rules that we're studying in both nahu and sarf, and that book is Qasasun Nabiyin. Qasasun Nabiyin is a very basic book. We'll start studying, inshallah ta'ala, the beginning stories of Qasasun Nabiyin, applying the rules that we're studying in the books of nahu and sarf. Now, when it comes to the books of nahu and sarf, there are many, many books that the scholars, they teach from and they go through. The books that we've chosen for the first most essential beginning of the student into these disciplines is, number 1, for Nahu, we chose Abu Hayyan's Ashadra al-Dhahabiyya, and as for Sarf, we chose Bina'ul Af'al. These are very, very commonly found books that are taught and celebrated in the entire Arab world. And one thing we wanted to focus on in this program is not to change the general trend which is found and has been adopted across centuries. Sometimes when people design their own program, they come up with something completely different, something that was never found before, something which is different. And even if it actually is a good program, even if, let's say, for example, it's able to grant a lot of benefit and it's able to grant insight, maybe in a better way that you find in some of the more traditional works, there is still a problem with leaving the traditional setting and leaving the traditional method and resorting to a method which is not in line with the traditional works. So we, in our program, we feel that it's essential to actually remain connected with the traditional works. Why? Because the amount of shuruh, commentaries that have been compiled upon the traditional works, you'll never find them anywhere else. So when you go and advance and you want to take that leap and go to becoming an advanced student in that given discipline, in that given language, if you're not exposed to the traditional works, then you're going to have to restart all over again, even if you took another program before that. So for this reason, we incorporated in our program the traditional works, and along with those traditional works, we focus on developing and presenting and explaining in a very understandable and comprehensible manner. In module number 3, we transition into more detailed texts. So one of the most important texts that we have in this module is Min Adab al-Islam. Min Adab al-Islam is a basic book regarding adab, regarding etiquettes. And in Qasas al-Nabiyyin, when we're going through Qasas al-Nabiyyin, it was simply recognition with the harakat, with the vowels. When we enter Min Adab al-Islam, we remove the vowels. And now we try and understand and apply the same rules to those same patterns that we've been going through again and again and again. And we use Min Adab al-Islam for that purpose, while at the same time getting exposed to some of the greatest etiquettes in our Islamic understanding. Along with Min Adab al-Islam, we go on to the second level in each of the discipline of Nahwa and Sarf. So we have the discipline of syntax and morphology. We add a next book, a next level after the first level. In Nahwa, we have At-Tuhfatu As-Saniyya, which is a very celebrated work across the Arab world. And likewise, we have Tasrif al-Izzi, which is also a very celebrated work and taught across the Arab world. In module 3, we also have one more thing which is being introduced, which is the Ta'iyya of Abu Ishaq al-Albiri. This is Arabic poetry. So now as we are going through the Arabic language and we're getting exposed to being able to develop these patterns and understand these patterns, we're getting exposed as well to a little bit of Arabic literature and understanding the beauty of how the Arabs actually use these different patterns to carry impactful meanings in their literature. Module number 4, this will mark an essential phase. So by this point, the student will be able to actually take a sentence and let's say it has 0 vowels, it has 0 harakat, and he's able to apply the harakat himself, and he's able to actually read the sentence to a degree, and all he has to look up really is the translations of the words in the dictionaries. Other than that, he's able to decipher himself where the fatha goes, where the dhamma goes, where the kasra goes. And likewise, his vocabulary has increased by this point. After this, there's a second level and stage that every student would have to develop, which is going more in depth into the actual disciplines that we previously introduced. So we have the discipline of syntax, we have the disciplines of morphology, going into more depth. So in syntax, we have Mutammima al-Ajrumiyya. There are certain discussions that were left out in Tuhfatu As-Saniyya. The Mutammima, it comes and it completes those discussions, and it goes a lot more in depth, giving you a greater understanding of the theory, or entering you into the minds of the actual scholars that jotted down and wrote down these rules and guidelines through which you're able to decipher the Arabic language and understand the Arabic language. Likewise, you have Sarf. In Sarf, we have Sawati al-Juman, in which there's a lot of further explanation regarding how morphology actually works in the Arabic language. So this is actually taking you from a level of comprehension. By now, you already comprehend the Arabic language, but giving you further insight, theoretical insight into how the discipline actually works. So imagine, for example, you have a basic understanding of how things go together and the patterns work together, and you're able to recognize them and you're able to apply them. But we want to give you a more detailed understanding. Okay. I, for example, might look at a car and the car might have a problem with it, and I take it to the mechanic. I think it's a certain problem, but the mechanic, he looks at the car, he hears the sound, and he's like, no, you got it wrong. The actual problem is so-and-so. So he has a deeper insight. So this level gives you that deeper insight. It takes you from the average individual, from an average understanding and comprehension of the Arabic language, to a far deeper insight of how this language actually functions. We finish it off with module number 5. Module number 5 is the cherry on the top, and really it's the main reason why we're studying the Arabic language. We don't want to finish it off by simply teaching the language. Rather, we finish it off by actually applying it directly to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In module number 5, we're going to be going through the entire 30th juz of the Qur'an, inshallah ta'ala, explaining and understanding and comprehending the linguistic nature of the Qur'an, the miraculous nature that caused so many people to believe and left the Arabs in absolute astonishment and awe of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenged in many places in the Qur'an. If you think that this is from anyone other than Allah, then produce something like it. And they weren't able to produce anything. 14 centuries, no one has been able to come close. So what is it that I'm missing out on if I don't study anything? If I don't study the Arabic language? What component of the Qur'an is so powerful? What part of it is so powerful? Bringing that out and experiencing that as a Muslim, that is what Module 5 is geared towards. And in that process, inshallah ta'ala, we will be exposing the students to a number of different linguistic tafasir that have been compiled regarding the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeing how they can actually extract the meanings from these tafasir and understand the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we teach them how to swim. We don't just simply take out the pearls and present them to the students. We actually teach them how to swim themselves. And they develop the ability to be able to comprehend and to be able to study the tafsir of the Qur'an so that they can, inshallah ta'ala, complete in their lifetimes a study of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a general overview of the program that we have prepared. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us blessings and understandings. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to serve the Qur'an and be able to be from those that benefit the ummah. And we hope that you will join us in this journey. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.